everyone, and welcome to my channel. I hope you enjoy this video.
Well, hello everyone, and in this episode we're going to tackle a rather difficult topic, but an interesting topic and a really fascinating topic. What happened to the Amazon? Why is the Amazon the way it is? And why did it seem to go from savanna or grassland into the crazy forest that it is today? And it actually seems to have happened quite recently. We could say it's happened in the last maybe 10,000 years. It looks like it happened about 10,000 years ago, which would mean that the structures under the Amazon are more than 10,000 years old. And in this video, I think we can actually show that those structures, although they say they're recent, maybe 1,000 years old, that they might have been reused in that time, and they left some carbon deposits there, but the cities under the Amazon are probably 10,000 years old. And I'll explain why that must be the case. And it is due to metabolism, the metabolism of plants in the Amazon and the changing gas levels in the atmosphere over that time. Now, firstly, let's look up the age of the Amazon. Now, you just briefly Google the age of the Amazon and it says the Amazon is 55 million years old. The rainforest has been in existence for at least 55 million years, and most of the region remained free of savanna-type biomes, at least until the current ice age when the climate was drier and savanna more widespread. So it's saying the forest is 55 million years old, but it's also saying it was a savanna in the current ice age. Now, to me, you can't really say that. So some people have actually taken this and said, well, it's sort of new. And when they say current ice age, they are actually referring to the Quaternary. It's a period 2.5 million years old. This is when temperatures started changing. I'll show you what started happening. This is what started happening in the Quaternary. You see, this is the Miocene began 20 to 10 million years ago, and 2 million years ago is the Quaternary, this period here, which is this level of quite low temperatures. And this is when what the precursor to the Amazon would have changed into grassland, and now suddenly it has changed back into a kind of forest. And why? You have to ask why. And this is actually quite fascinating because some authors say, for example, Charles Mann, who wrote 1491, it's a fascinating book. I love to read biology books. He actually said that the Amazon is an out-of-control garden. And it's a garden that's gone crazy, it's gone mad, and we don't know why. And I sort of pounced on this to say that, well, maybe ancient travel, this is evidence of transatlantic, trans-Pacific contact, because ancient travelers went there and they basically took plants there, which took over and acted like weeds, and it all went crazy. I'm also reading a fascinating book, Ages of Gaia by Lovecock. Unfortunately, a very dry read. I've had to abandon it, but I've picked it up again and I'm trying to finish it. But he said some fascinating things about C3 and C4 metabolism. Now, grass evolved. Grass basically evolved 10 million years ago. And when you plot it according to a temperature graph, you can actually see why. For some reason, grass favors the colder temperatures. So this is when the Amazon started to change into a forest. And you've got to ask why. And the reason is actually nothing to do with, not really anything to do with the temperatures. It's actually due to believe it or not, it's due to the CO2 levels. The CO2 levels have actually boosted the growth of the Amazon into a forest in recent times. Now, why is this? Now, you look at grass, just look at what grass is. It's a very thin, extremely wafer-thin solar panel, which creates sugar for the cells of which it is constituted. And you look at what a tree is. A tree is a huge mass of carbon, different types of carbon compounds, and attached to this huge brown mass of carbon are just small little leaves. Now, the tree, we call it carbon-3 metabolism. Grass, it's a newer type of metabolism called carbon-4 metabolism, which only evolved 10 million years ago. Trees were here, and then grass started taking over in response to changes occurring over here. So we have C3 metabolism, And then C4 metabolism. Now, here's the difference. C4 metabolism, you look at what a grass is. It's got not much carbon in there. It's wafer thin. So the trees are pulling carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere when they are growing to create themselves, and so does the grass. But obviously, a blade of grass doesn't need to pull as much carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere. Now, what's actually happened here is that in the Ice Age, there have been very, very low CO2 levels. Extremely low CO2 levels. And this actually means that grass has been able to grow quite easily compared to trees. The trees have suffered. So in this time, this is the current Ice Age that was described, the Amazon has basically turned into a savanna, and recently it's just suddenly turned into this forest. So in the Ice Age times, we're talking the last 10 million years, in which Antarctica has been frozen over. This is what's been occurring. This is why the Amazon was a grassland. CO2 levels were very low. And now suddenly CO2 levels have increased considerably, and we've switched to forest. And this is just amazing. And the CO2 levels have been going up since Roman times, or even just before that. We don't know exactly why. It's quite interesting. What was the world like back then? The oceans were actually had more, even more sulfur than today as well. The oceans would have been saltier. There may have been different types of fish. And the reason for that is, and this is going to blow your mind, when CO2 levels are low, it means that during the Ice Ages, so we're currently here, we've kind of come a little bit out of this Ice Age, but it means that there was more life before during the Ice Age because there was less CO2 in the atmosphere. And this is what Lovecock says. There was more CO2, there was less CO2 before, more life. Why? And he suggests it's because when the sea level was lower, there was more surface area on the continental shelf, more of those exposed continental shelves. There would have been all those civilizations there, and there was more room for life on the edges of the continents, and that's all been submerged. All that rich soil has been submerged, and he suggests there must be extremely rich soil, which is now under the ocean. And this must have been full of life, sucking the CO2 out of the atmosphere. And that's just so interesting. That is really fascinating. Now, he says that the sea salt smell that you smell, it would have been, it's actually sulfur. The sea spray smell, when you smell the sea, it's sulfur. And he suggests there was, the sea would have been much more sulfurous in the past. That sulfur, it's basically algae on the coast, and it's evaporating its wastes, those sulfur chemicals. And the smell would have been stronger before because there was basically even more of it before. And what happens is the sulfur, it actually rises up into the atmosphere, and it creates it actually has compounds which create particles which seed rain clouds, so that rain rains on those algae, which are evaporating sulfur on the sea coast, in order so they don't dry out from all the salt. It's actually a mechanism. So there would have been more rainfall before in the Ice Age because of that mechanism. The oceans may have been basically saltier, this is absolutely, this is a fascinating topic, guys. Anyway, stay tuned for the next video. We're going to talk about why the ancient giants were wiped out. I hope you've really enjoyed this video on the Amazon, why it's changed from grassland due to the CO2 levels. But in the next one, yes, ancient giants, why did they go? I think it was carbon monoxide poisoning. This is a brand new theory. You're going to really enjoy it. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Isn't this fascinating? All right, cheers, guys. Bye-bye.